Parable number 5. The boy who stood on his father's shoulders. On projection. A boy was raised on his father's shoulders. His father had been a tall man, and the boy had been small. And so this had begun naturally enough. The father had lifted him in his first year of walking to see over a parade in the village square. The boy had liked the height. The father had liked the small weight of his son above him. He had carried the boy home on his shoulders that evening, and he had carried him there again the next week. Within a year, the carrying had become the ordinary way that the father took the boy anywhere. The boy grew. He grew steadily in the way that boys grow, an inch or two a year, until by his 10th birthday he was a sturdy boy of some 40 pounds and 4 feet of height. His father, who had been 45 when the boy was born, had begun to stoop a little. The stoop was not entirely from the carrying. Men of 45 stoop for many reasons, but the carrying hadn't helped. The father did not, in the 10th year, suggest that the boy come down. The boy did not, in the 10th year, ask to. He liked it up there. He could see from the height of his father's head things the other boys of the village could not see. He could see over the wall of the schoolyard. He could see into the priest's garden. He could see over the heads of the men in the market who was buying what at the far stalls. He spoke down to other children. He believed by his 12th year that his eyes were that high, that he was, by nature, a boy of unusual stature, that the other children at their lesser heights were a different and lower species. The father did not contradict him. The father had begun by the 12th year to be quiet most of the time. The carrying had grown heavy. The boy was carried into school on the father's shoulders. The schoolmaster, who thought this arrangement very, very strange at first, eventually accepted it. The boy sat at his desk on his father's shoulders, the father kneeling beneath him, and the boy did his lessons from above. The father waited. The father had no school of his own to attend. His own schooling had ended at the age of 9. The boy was carried in his 18th year to his own wedding. Bride had been a kind girl. She had not in their courtship met the father. She had only met the boy, who had courted her with letters and at public dances, at which he had stood on his father's shoulders against a wall. She had thought charmingly he was just tall. On the day of the wedding, she discovered for the first time the arrangement. She did not in the church refuse to marry. She stood beside the father and the boy at the altar with a difficult expression. The father knelt for the vows. The boy looked down at her from the shoulders, and they were married. The boy was carried in his 23rd year to the funeral of his grandfather. He was by then a heavy young man. The father, who was 68, could no longer easily stand from a kneeling position. He had to be helped up by the village men. The boy on his shoulders took the slight tremor of his father's legs as a feature of the world, rather than a feature of his father. He did not, in his 23rd year, look down. He hadn't looked down in some years. One afternoon in the village square, the father lay down to rest. And he did this without warning. He had been standing in the square, the boy on his shoulders, waiting for the bride to come back from the bakery. He had been standing for a long time. The bride had been delayed. The father suddenly knelt, then he lay down, full length, on the cobbles, and he did not get back up. The boy was suddenly 4 feet shorter. He landed on his feet beside his father, who was breathing, but did not look like he intended at that moment to rise. The boy stood in the village square, his own height, for the first time in 23 years, and he looked around. "The houses have shrunk," cried the boy. "The market has shrunk. The trees are smaller. What has happened to the world?" The village square was empty, except for a grey cat sitting on a low wall. The cat looked at him with patient eyes. "The world is the same height it has always been," said the cat. "You have been wearing your father's eyes. Now your father is on the ground. You are at the height you have always been. The world has not shrunk. You have arrived in it." "But everything looks smaller," wept the boy. "Everything looks the right size," said the cat. "You have been looking down on the world for so long that the right size feels like shrinking. The houses are the size of houses. The trees are the size of trees. The men in the market are men, not the small creatures you have been calling them. Your wife is a woman, not a small bride. Your father, lying on the ground, is a man of 68, whose back has been crushed for 20 years by his son. He has lain down because he cannot any longer stand up. Sit a while, it'll pass, or it will not pass, and you will spend your life trying to climb back onto your father's shoulders. He is sleeping. He will not lift you again. He has lifted you for the last time. The world is the right size now. The world has been waiting for you to come down." The boy stood in the square, looking at his own feet on the cobbles for the first time. The cat watched. The father slept. He did not climb back. He could not. The father, when he had recovered enough to stand, could no longer stoop. The spine had set. The boy could not have been carried even if he had wished. He learned in the years that follow to walk at his own height. He learned to look at the other men of the village in the eye, neither above nor below. He learned in time to look his bride in the eye. The father lived another 12 years, bent, slow, but unburdened. He died in his sleep at age 80. The boy, by then a man of 35, carried his father's coffin on his shoulders to the grave. It was the first time he had ever carried his father. The coffin was lighter than he had imagined. He understood walking to the grave that he had been carrying for 23 years. He'd been carried for 23 years by a man who had also, all along, been carrying him in some other way that did not weigh, but that had cost. He did not, in his own age, allow his son to be carried on his shoulders. His son walked. His son walked from the second year at his own height. His son saw when he was small, the small things small. He saw when he was tall, the tall things tall. The son became in time a man of his own stature. He did not stoop in old age. The moral: what you see through another man's eyes, is not yours to keep. When he lies down, the world becomes the right size. Most men spend their lives calling the right size a shrinking. The world is to come down. The work is to come down. The work is also in the next generation to make sure the sun walks. The carrying costs both. The walking costs neither.